Welcome to the week that was, but we mostly wish it wasn't, for the week ending December 5th, 2025. This is a weekly roundup of the highlights and lowlights of campus anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. This week I had about 40 stories to choose from. If something is happening in your neck of the woods, please be sure to let me know. I'm your host, Andrew Pessin. I am a professor. Please don't hate me. For more about me and my work, visit andrewpessin.com. For all the details of today's stories and loads more stories, follow me on X at Andrew Pessin. An announcement: I will soon be launching the Institute for the Critical Study of Anti-Zionism, a scholarly enterprise that's aiming to document and expose the sordid origins and malevolent evolution of anti-Zionism, from the protocols of the Elders of Zion through the Nazis, the Soviets, the Muslim Arabs, and the Western progressives. I am seeking interested collaborators and possible sponsors, so if that's you, please contact me to discuss. And lastly, I am still wearing this because there's still one hostage and he deserves to come home. Okay, let's get to the news. We'll start with a little bit of good news. The state of Texas has requested that CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, 501c3 status be revoked due to its ties to terrorism. This follows last week's news that both CARE and Muslim Brotherhood were being designated by Texas as foreign terrorist organizations. Now let's get to the normal news. University of Delaware: a student was arrested this week with a machine gun, a manifesto, and plans to attack the school's campus. According to the documents seized, he had written in his notebooks, "Battle efficiency, kill all, martyrdom." Martyrdom is discussed repeatedly in his notes, apparently, and during a police interview, the student said that becoming a martyr was one of the greatest things you can do and was one of his goals. He was born in Pakistan. Although nothing explicit about targeting Jews comes out there, the discussion of martyrdom is obviously suspect. Harvard University: a federal judge this week dismissed an anti-Semitism lawsuit against the business school, ruling that the student in question had failed to show that he experienced severe and pervasive anti-Semitism on campus. You're all probably familiar with the incident. It was filmed. It went viral. The particular incident was this student was walking through a park attempting to film an anti-Israel demonstration, and he was surrounded by fellow students covering him with keffiyehs and refusing to let him go and ultimately blocking his attempt to get out of the park. Well, according to the federal judge, that although the court does not condone an assault on a fellow student by campus protesters, it was an assault. There were criminal charges filed. Nothing in the complaint plausibly supports the notion that the assailant's conduct was motivated by race-based anti-Semitism. This is exactly the kind of case that underscores why we need the Institute for the Critical Study of Anti-Zionism. If it's not race-based anti-Semitism, it's okay. Anti-Zionism is getting a free pass, and we need to study anti-Zionism to see it as its own particular form of bigotry, however it might be related to traditional anti-Semitism. Unless you think that Harvard has learned anything from this whole experience, they also announced this week that they were hiring the student who perpetrated the assault to serve as a teaching fellow in the divinity school. The other student who was the focus, the perpetrator of the assault, was awarded a very prestigious fellowship last year, you might remember. Northwestern University has agreed this week to pay $75 million to the Trump administration over the next 3 years to end an anti-Semitism investigation going on there and to restore hundreds of millions of dollars of frozen federal funds. In addition to the payment, Northwestern has agreed to review its international admissions policies and to develop training for international students to learn the, quote, norms of the campus. One doesn't know what to say about that there. One hopes what they mean is that attacking Jews is not acceptable, but given what was going on that campus, one wonders or worries that the norms there are to attack the Jews on the campuses. Unless you feel that Northwestern has actually learned anything from its experience, this week Al Jazeera is convening a conference in Qatar featuring Hamas officials and professors from Northwestern's Qatar University campus, and they will be discussing how the media is biased in favor of Israel. That could go into the can't make this stuff up department. The next story should go into that. I wish we couldn't make this stuff up department. This is part of the normalization of violence against Jews on campuses and elsewhere. Cornell University, their graduate student union this past week, passed a resolution affirming and endorsing, quote, resistance by any means necessary, but meanwhile complaining that Jews weaponize anti-Semitism. So if you get that right, what they say, it's perfectly okay to mass murder Jews if you deem that that is necessary, but when Jews complain about it, that's bad. UC Berkeley, graduate student housing has seen a large rash of specifically anti-Zionist graffiti, in particular the graduate student housing for families, which is located in Albany, California. Jews in Albany tallied 18 incidents of extreme violent anti-Israel graffiti in November alone, including phrases such as "fuck Israel," "burn Israel down," "kill Zion," and "kill all Zionists." Right? This is housing that has families with small children who are exposed to this on a regular basis. So somehow, if that's not racist anti-Semitism, that's okay, according to certain federal judges. And speaking of normalizing violence, the University of Florida was ordered this week to reinstate a law student who'd been expelled for anti-Jewish comments. This includes one social media post calling for Jews to be abolished by any means necessary. Again, Jews must be abolished by any means necessary rings to my ear as a call for the mass murder of Jews. But the federal judge in question said that the University of Florida did not show that the student's speech constituted a true threat or was otherwise proscribable. So it's okay to call for the mass murder of Jews. Columbia University, lest anybody think they've learned anything from the past couple of years and their investigations and the lawsuits and the fines they're paying to the Trump administration. This week, it was announced that a history professor who had blocked Jewish students at the encampment a couple of years back now was promoted to full professor. And lest you think the history department stops there, a second history professor who also participated in blocking Jewish students at the encampment was promoted to chair of the department. The University of Minnesota, they also promoted two faculty members who were members of Faculty for Justice in Palestine and well known for nasty anti-Zionist activities, so they received promotions as well. I will spare you the details. At Miami University in Ohio, an anti-Semitic message was left on a student's door, and another one plus a racist message was left in a communal bathroom. Brooklyn Law School, a Jewish student attempted to host Israeli entrepreneur and activist Hillel Fuld, whose brother was murdered by a terrorist several years back. But that effort to host him was canceled by the school, allegedly due to, quote, safety concerns. Meanwhile, Students for Justice in Palestine's rule-breaking celebrations of terror are allowed to go forward. In the United Kingdom, the Oxford Union much in the news lately because their previous president openly cheered the murder of Charlie Kirk. Well, he got basically voted out, a vote of no confidence, and they replaced him with their first Palestinian president, a student who has been involved in a documentary regarding the Gaza-Israel conflict and referred to Israel's assault on Gaza. She had studied in Qatar, where her father is a professor at Qatar University. So look for more news coming from that source. Very briefly, in the K through 12 department in New York City, a principal denied a request for a Holocaust survivor to speak at a middle school, quote, given his messages, i.e., he happens to support Israel, not least because Israel was the only way of saving and rescuing Jews as a result of the Holocaust. Well, that's the news, unfortunately. Tune in next week to see what fresh horrors next week might bring. Again, I'm your host, Andrew Pessin at andrewpessin.com, and hoping that everyone holds until next. See ya.